Neat, we're recording. Let's go ahead and begin. Didn't get too many things about this studio from y'all. So if you, of course, as always, see anything out there that you want to talk more about, yell at me, stop me, slow me down, and let me know what you exactly want to explore. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. 26.6 Studio, Fetch and JSON. Your task is to build a website that shows astronauts fetched from an API. 26.6.1, get started. Number one, fork the Studio repository to your own GitHub account. Clone the repository to your clone your repository to your computer. Let's go ahead and do that. I click on that link. I go to the top right. I see that word fork. Remember, this copies over to your repository, a brand new copy that you can do anything you want to. It's going to bring it over to mine. We're going to wait here for just a moment as it does so. Perfect. On the top right here, we click code. We copy that link, and we're going to go back to our desktop. In here, of course, I'm going to first cd into my launch code directory. So I say cd desktop into lc for launch code. In here, I say ls. I see all of my projects. Now, what I do is just a find, remember, or excuse me, a small note to remember: do not make a new folder for your projects. Please, 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 do not make a new folder for your projects. Git will do it for you. Keeps everything at a good base level. So I say git clone, paste that link in there, press enter, and here comes our Studio on your machine. Awesome. While we're at it, we're also going to go ahead and open it up in Visual Studio Code. So I go ahead and start opening up by Visual Studio Code there. There we go. I have another one up here. So what I'm going to do is file new window. Bring it back down here. There we go. I press open. I go into, not that, I need to go into, here we go, desktop, perfect, LC, awesome, awesome, awesome. Go into, I believe it was Fetch and JSON, I would hope so. Press open, and it opens up in our project. Remember, we single click on the project folder, and then we press open. Once we do that, we should see the three folders here. We see index, HTML, script, and styles. Awesome. Looks like we are good to go. Let's hop back over here. We did 1 and 2 on to 26.6.2 requirements. Number 1, add code that runs on the window load event. This is done because we can't interact with the HTML elements until the page is loaded. That is very correct. We talked about that in lecture. We want to make sure everything we do is after the window loads. We need to be patient. All right, so add the code that runs on the window load event. So I'm assuming to wait for something to be loaded up in Windows, or to wait for the window to load, we have to add an event listener. Add an event listener is written in JavaScript. I'm assuming we want to be in the JavaScript file. So I'm going to come down here to the script.js, and it even gives me a little to-do here. It says add the code here. So that's why I'm going to add this code here. To make sure I wait for my window to load before I do anything, I need to, again, add that event listener. So I say window.add event listener. And I know this is very boring, so shout it out to me. What event are we listening for in order to wait?
The load.
The load, very good. Absolutely right. And after that, what do we do after? What's this thing called that I'm about to create?
A function.
What kind of function?
Anonymous.
Very good. Very good. Anonymous function. Absolutely right. Because it doesn't have a name. It doesn't want to know. This must be it. There we go. Awesome, awesome. We have that add event listener now for load. Now, hopping back to our stuff. We already read A, 1 is done. Let's hop down to 2. Make a GET request using fetch to the astronauts API. And then it gives us the actual link for that JSON. So I'm going to single click on this and take a look at what exactly it wants. Oh, this is something fancy. Look at all this stuff going on. All right. Well then, it's a little bit more tricky than our weather stuff that we saw before, but not as tricky as our cat facts, surprisingly enough. All right. Hopping back over here, we saw what our JSON is. It says we want to do a get fetch, or we want to do a fetch to make that request for the astronauts API. Do this part inside of the load event handler. So it gives us very strong hints of where to write this code. So let's go ahead and do that. First things first, I'm going to copy this link. Awesome. And it says to make it inside the load, or this event listener for the load event. So you all help me out with this one. Wake on up. What do I need to do to start getting that data from that URL? What word do I start with? I see people saying fetch. Exactly right. Don't tell me to fetch. I'm not a dog. Lol. Dad
Sorry.
jokes. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Literally kidding. All right, so inside the fetch, then we place that URL that we need to actually get the information from. It was given to us in the studio. It's that .json, the static page that we worked with before. Remember, as we talked about in lecture, not all of our URLs that we're going to be fetching information from are going to end in that .json extension. It's just going to be really useful to us right now as we're working with launch code stuff. Awesome. All right, so we're fetching this data back, but this is not the only line we have to provide with fetches. What is next?
Then.
A dot then. Very good. And for if we need a quick reminder, that's the word I'm looking for. Reminder then happens after the fetch has been completed. So it waits for the fetch to complete and then does whatever we tell it to next. To tell it to do what we want next, we have to write a function, another anonymous function, inside that then statement. So inside of here, what are we missing? The response. We just went out and got information back from a website, so we hope that there is something back to show us, and that thing to show us is the response. If you're going out and getting something back, you better bring something back, otherwise what's the point of running to the store? So we go ahead and get back a response. Absolutely right. So what's next? We got back this response, but is it usable?
No.
It is not usable. Absolutely right. What do we need to do to it to make it usable?
Parse it with JSON.
How do I do that?
Turn
Anybody
the
got the line?
JSON object.
JSON, I heard it.
Return response.json.
Response.json, absolutely right. Very good. So we return that JSON object. Now, after that's been returned, we actually have something to work with. So now what we're going to do is type in the then here, function, if I can spell it right, function, there we go. And then the object returned in this one is going to be something that we can actually use. So we say response here. And this response down here, something we can finally work with. Neat O. And also, just a reminder, take out these thises. Sometimes Visual Studio Code just puts this in there. Sometimes it's useful. Right now, it's not. Awesome. I'm going to leave this blank for just right now. Actually, you know what? Why not? Let's go ahead and see our hard work at work. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to actually come over here. Right-click on this. It's for Mac users. Right-clicking on that. I'm going to press Reveal in Finder just so I don't have to go over a bunch of stuff. Come back over here. Double-click on index.html. It's going to open up a Safari. I'm going to tell Safari I'm not interested. Copy that. Bring it over to Chrome. I know people's got differing views on Google, but I'm a Google guy through and through. Keeps my ads very up to date. All right, in Chrome, here we go. We see that we have our index.html showing astronauts. Inspect this, going over to our console, and we see we actually have something back. Again, we always take baby steps in coding. We want to make sure that when we get to a decent milestone, a decent checkpoint, to make sure that the code is working how we expect. At console logged our array, we look in this array, we see that we have those 7 objects, and it looks like it has those astronauts in there. So awesome. The object is looking decent. It looks like we got a bunch of properties here. Skills looks like it's an array. Neat, neat, neat. All right, so I'm going to come back over here. Any questions up until this point before we continue on? Oh no, I came here with no water. I'm out. All right, whatever. Oh, I'll get water later. So there's no questions. We're going to go ahead and keep moving. I feel like everyone's like waiting for a part of the studio. Again, I don't remember these by heart, but I feel like everyone's just like, I'm going to wait till he gets to this part. He's like cheerful right now, but when he gets there, his smile is going to fade. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what everyone's got.
It's the loopy part.
The loopy part. All right. Going to keep my eye out for the loopy part. All right. We finished up 2. We finished up A. Do this in part of the load hand. Awesome. Let's move on to 3 here. Add each astronaut returned to the web page. Okay, that's very generic. Let's see how we need to add it to the web page. I almost said number A, but we're going to go with it. Number A, use the HTML template shown below. Okay, B, be sure to use the exact HTML, including the CSS class. Starter code contains CSS definitions. Awesome, awesome. All right, let's go ahead and do that. So, use the HTML template below. I'm trying to look for that HTML template. It says HTML template below. I'm assuming this one. It's a little bit too far below, but we'll take it. Okay, so this is the template. And it says that it wants to Okay, so it says use template below. Be sure to use the exact same channel. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Add each astronaut return to the web page. Okay. We need to add each astronaut to the web page. Neat. Let's go and see where this information is. Where is my data? Let's start there. We'll worry about the visualization part next. We have a whole data flow to set up before we even show anything. So we need to set up that data flow. We're going to come over here. Our data flow starts where the data comes in. The data is right here. This is our fetch. So now we actually need to come in here and we need to push our astronauts visually to our HTML. So push out each astronaut. Oh, have I even spelled that right? I don't think I did. Astronaut to the screen. All right. So anybody have any ideas how we can go through each astronaut and print them out to the screen? What tool are we going to be using? I think I already heard it.
Loop.
Loopy.
Loop. We're going to get loopy here. So let's go ahead and do that. What we need to do is that we know in the response we have each astronaut. That's awesome. So inside of here, and also as I'm going to do this, we can always optimize it. But right now, what I'm going to do is keep all the code in this then statement just for the moment. I might go ahead in the very end, make things a little bit fancier, unless the instructions, of course, tell me. So let's go and write this right here. We're going to say for let I equal 0, I less than response.length, I plus plus. We are doing a loop here. Why did I know it's response.length? Again, because I console logged it and I know it's an array. I only am able to do this because I tried to discover what I'm working with. So if you ever have any questions about, okay, what do I need to actually, what am I working with when things are returned? Well, take a look. One, you need to validate personally to make sure that you trust this data coming in. And two, it'll actually tell you what you can use now because of its data type. I know this data type of a response is an array, and I know that length is a property on there. So now I'm able to loop through each astronaut. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go ahead and print out each one to the screen. So what I say is response of part I. I'm going to comment out our previous console log up there.
Quick
Come
question.
back over. Yeah, what's up?
So when you loop, aren't you supposed to like loop it with like a for in loop or a for if loop?
So in arrays, we typically want to only use just the typical for loop. In objects, we'll use the for in, I believe.
Oh,
Technically, you could use
everything.
Oh,
I thought everything in like an API was written in like a object format. You know what I'm saying?
it's written in a type
JSON.
of data container. So you have two options of it coming back, typically in JSON, is an array or an object.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep, you have two different options coming back from an API. Great question there. So right now we're working with the array type. And how I know that is if we go back to our astronauts here, it even says array. We are returned in our response array. But as we saw in the weather example, we were returned an object. So there is two possibilities there. So again, really great call out. So right now we're working with the array. Let's go and refresh this and see what happens. Take a look at this. What just happened is that we looped through each astronaut and broke it out line by line now. So now I took that array and I put each astronaut line by line. So what this tells me is that response at I is an individual astronaut. So that's cool. This is another thing that we were able to discover as we were just printing out the things to those lines. So now that I know that response I has all that astronaut information individually, again, depending on what iteration I'm on in the loop, let's go ahead and now bring in that HTML that we originally had.
Good.
I think it's still pasted. Did I hear a question?
Phone no charger తీసుకెళ్ళాలి. వెళ్ళేటప్పుడు phone no charger తీసుకెళ్ళాలి.
I'm going to go ahead and do that. There we go. All right. So we have our HTML here. And so now we can actually take a look. Okay, the HTML is given. We're still not in the visual portion yet, but now we can actually dissect in the HTML what we're going to need. Now, class astronaut, class bio, that's cool. But right here, this tells me that this is a name most likely of the astronaut. So what I do is I go over to the object. And I see my first name is May, and then my second name is Jameson. So what tells me on this is that this is a first name and last name appended to each other. Interesting. Let's keep going and dissecting this. Hours in space, 190. Is that a property in this object? Hours in space, 190. Awesome. We're seeing this so far. Same with active and skills. I see active as a Boolean up here. I see that because it says true or false without any quotes around it, so it makes it a Boolean. And then I see my skills here, which is an array of different skills that this individual has. So awesome to see here. So what this means is that this response I has all the information I need to potentially create this HTML. So
Hi. Can I
yeah,
just,
Hannah.
yeah, here you just mentioned skill, but that skill is not just a string, right?
So if we're talking about skills right here, as we go over to the object, we see that skills is an array of strings. So it's multiple different skills inside of an array.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're here in this area. So let's go ahead and start creating some HTML. Again, remember, HTML can be technically provided by a string. So what I can do is just create a string here. So I'm going to say, let my HTML equals, and we're going to be inserting information into this string of HTML we're about to create. So what do I use is the ticks, because these ticks allow us to insert information. So what I do is I have those ticks, I copy this HTML in here, and I paste it in. Ooh, color change, nice. All right, cool. So we have our HTML here. Let's go ahead and again dissect that information that we need to insert here. May was the first name of the astronaut. So I need to insert the first name of the astronaut depending on what iteration I'm on. It's always going to be May. So what I do is I insert the information like this. I take the response I, and again, that is my astronaut's object. May was the first name, I believe. May, first name. So my key to get May out of that astronaut object is first name with a capital N. So we say response I, again, which is that astronaut object, dot first name. I'm going to pause here. So the first inserting of information. Any questions on this?
After the H3, there's a $sign. I'm not sure what this is here for.
Remember, this is a string literal or a temperate literal.
Okay.
So what that does is that if in these ticks here, a $sign and then a curly bracket denotes the inserting of data. So something more dynamic or customizable to however you want your string to be formed.
Okay, I thought it was, at first I thought it was an S, which is why I was asking the question. And then
No worries, no worries. Yeah, absolutely. $sign. All right, so what I'm going to do, because I'm a lazy coder, is copy this little guy right here. Paste that. And now I need last name, I believe. Let me double check here. Last name, absolutely right. So now I need to insert last name. Awesome. So this is creating the HTML. Are we going to be able to see this if we refresh? Absolutely not. We're just creating a string right now. Again, we are setting up that data flow. We started at where the data came in, made sure everything was correct, double checked its format and structure. Now we're taking that structure and we're plugging it into a string that has HTML. Ask yourself, where does this data flow start and end? It starts in JavaScript and ends in HTML. Hence, right now we're preparing our payload, if you will, for HTML. So awesome. What I'm going to do is finish up the data insert here. What I can do is hours in space. I believe I got to go and see the object is hours in space. All right. I got to copy that again. Coming down here to active. I believe it was just active, so I'm going to say active. And then here is where the fun one is. So remember, if we put skills here, it's going to have just an array of stuff come back. So right now, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to leave it be just for right now, we're just gonna go ahead and put skills there. We're gonna come back to it. This is not correct, but we're gonna go a little bit more in depth how to fix this here after we have this over to the HTML. So everything will show pretty much well except for skills. And again, we'll come back. So
Okay.
leaving
That's
this
what I
here.
was wondering, like how we do the scripts. Thank you, though. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. We will definitely come back to it because it is a little, I want to go a little bit more in depth and I want to see things first. All right, so we have my HTML now here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and clear out my comment below. Now, let's go ahead and explore where we essentially need to set this information at. Hypothetically, if I had this, I believe if we go to index.html, it's right here in the ID of container. It says list of astronauts will be added here dynamically. Awesome. Dynamically means that it's not going to be there whenever the code gets set up, aka it wants JavaScript to do its magic in the back end. So what it means by dynamically, so we need to use JavaScript to insert things into our container by its ID. So what I'm going to do is that before this loop even runs, let's go ahead and just get our element. So we say let my container equal document dot get element by ID. Remember again that ID was container. Awesome. So my container is there. Now my question to you all is that, okay, so I set my HTML up here, but if I say my container dot inner HTML, because remember, we just need to now set the inner HTML to this container equal to my HTML, we made a connection here, but what's going to happen? Let's go and take a look. Let's even see if stuff is working. Let's go and refresh.
Yes.
We only see one. And also, I'm very happy that we did this because I didn't realize there was an image in there either. Let's go back over to our HTML and take a look. Looks like we have this thing right here too. So it looks like a source, and I'm not actually printing this out. Are we supposed to have images in this one?
For us, they said it could not load.
Yeah, did anyone, is there a correction on the studio, anybody? Is there supposed to be images in here?
Yeah, the images are supposed to populate as well, but I didn't get it to populate.
I'm not seeing any images in here. Okay, we'll go and take a look at the GitHub after this. But anyway, so we need to update also this URL. So what I do is $, and then I'm going to be inserting that URL. Or sorry, that URL, which anybody got that property name? Because I just don't have it console log right now. Is it image?
Pictures.
Pictures.
Pictures?
Yes. Pictures. Yeah.
Plural?
Yes.
Picture.
Let's go and take a look at
Singular.
It's singular.
A picture with
Singular,
small
okay.
t, with small.
Perfect. All right, let's go and refresh that again. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So also take a very close look at what I did here. I left it inside the quotes. That's a very big thing. Don't take away those quotes. Because when this information gets inserted in here, it needs to still be between those quotes so HTML knows that whole string right there is your true source for your image. Now I get now why, okay, that makes so much more sense. I'm going to refresh or inspect this real quick. That's, okay, they're actually, the picture is a URL, not that slash image. I was like, okay, I'm hoping that there wasn't supposed to be a folder of images. Real quick, what I'm explaining here, if we hop back over to, where's that studio at? If we go back down here, what I'm talking about is that it said slash, or it said images slash whatever here. So I assumed, because it said images here, there would be a folder in there. That's what's going through my head. But anywho, it looks like we have our astronaut up there. But is this correct?
No,
No, what's going on? What's wrong with this?
there's no hours in space.
Well, that is also true, touche. Also, there's not multiple astronauts back. So real quick, just so I know what we're getting.
There's no name either.
Well, I see a name here.
That's the name here. Oh.
Let me go and see our network calls and see what's going on. Let's go up to our astronauts.json. Let's see what we're actually getting at. Why is there no hours? Oh, because if we go down to 6, It's because she, unfortunately, has not been up to space yet. So she actually does have 0 hours in space. So that's all fine. But the biggest issue is that we did not have multiple astronauts come back. We only had 1 come back. Why is that? Because every iteration of the loop, we're just overwriting that inner HTML.
Okay.
We're not actually including all of it at once before we put it in there. So I'm actually very curious to see if this is actually going to work. I want to see if it actually, if we append, it actually truly does that. It does. I want to see if that actually works. So what we just did is that we actually should put plus equals here if we wanted to and just append to the inner HTML. This is a very quick and dirty way of doing it. Not dirty, actually is fairly optimized if we want to do this. But I will also show one other way we could have done this in case we wanted to do it. So plus equals here absolutely works. Another one is don't consistently put it into as the loop is going, instead put it outside of it. And what we need to do is just build a giant string of HTML and then set it to that. So what I mean by that is say let all my HTML equal empty quotes. And then I can build right here all my HTML plus equals. Again, that's just appending it to whatever's already there. My HTML. Just like that. So every loop, this all my HTML is just building and building upon each div. And then when everything is said and done, set the inner HTML of my container to all of that HTML. So you just built a giant string of HTML, and now you're going to set it to that inner HTML. So we're going to save this and see if this one works. Look at that. All those brave souls are right there. So we have all of our astronauts now showing. So any questions on this? I'll hop back over to the code. What was the biggest challenge about this, do you feel?
Storing each astronaut in that instead of just canceling out. That was the biggest thing.
Gotcha, all right. Anybody else? Anyone else got an opinion on this?
Yeah. Are you able to, if you have time, are you able to show us show a for each loop with this? Is that are you able to do that, or would you prefer just a regular for loop?
I can do a for each real quick. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So response we already know is an array. An array comes with a set of very awesome functions. One of those being the for each. So is this the for each that you're wanting to see?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
I'm just trying to figure out which one will work better and when it comes to fetch or JSON, if I'm making any sense.
It does. And so when you're to this point, the fetch doesn't really matter too much, nor the JSON. You
Okay.
have your object and you're able to use it. And you're all within the scope now of JavaScript. You're all within the context of JavaScript. So any way you want to go about it. Well, let's go and do the for each and we'll talk about it. But technically the for each is more preferred in today's coding standards, but the for loop absolutely does work too. They're one of the same, just how they're created. So the for each takes in an anonymous function, and the parameter of that anonymous function is each item that it's looping over. So in this case, we can say astronaut. And then we place it in there. So once we do this, it's just like a loop, just as before. So what we can do is we can take this and just paste it into our for each. All of my HTML is still up there. It gets appended every time we loop through this. We can remove this for loop. And last thing we need to do is utilize this parameter that we have here and place it inside of that code.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So we save that. We're going to come back over here, refresh, and we still see them.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? All right, let's keep rocking then. Hop back over to the studio. We are all good. There were 3, and then example JSON. Okay, we already seen the example JSON. We are pros by that standard. And then we have our HTML template. It tells us about the ID container. Do not copy and paste this into your HTML file. It's got to be there dramatically, or not dramatically, dynamically. So we're all good there. And expected results on 26.6.2.3 looks good. We have all of our stuff there. So looks like that is it. So I will ask again any questions, because that is it for the studio before we do bonus missions.
Kyle, could you please explain this all my HTML, because it's not working for me? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. So all my HTML is a variable outside of our for each loop, if you're using the for each loop. So what it is that it's outside of here. What happens as our compiler comes in here on the 13, gets our first astronaut out of that array, brings us down here and creates this giant HTML string that we save in the my HTML variable. So it creates a whole string and it puts it in the my HTML variable. Then our compiler comes down here to line 27 and says, okay, I want you to append, aka add to all my HTML with whatever's in my HTML, again, which is up here. So that's the first loop. It does it for the second one, so it just keeps adding that next astronaut there, third one, fourth one, etc. And eventually, all my HTML contains all of those divs. Finally, we come down here to line 29, and we set all of that HTML to the inner HTML of my container.
Okay. In line 21, that astronaut.skills, how did we maneuver over the array?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing me back there. I want to do that. So if we come back over here to our astronauts, we see that we are actually not in the expected results. We see that our skills information is actually comma delimited. That is not, I believe, how it was supposed to be in the thingamabobber. It is, but we see a comma and then a space. We're talking about an auto grader. A comma versus a comma and a space are not the same thing. That auto grader will keep you there. So that is not correct. Let's go ahead, and what we're going to do is format this to be exactly like this. So we talked a bit ago about arrays and all of its helper methods with it, all the little extra things that it can come with. One of those in particular is a way that we can create a string out of an array by combining everything together. Does anyone remember that function by any chance?
Concat?
Concatenate is actually a string function, and it's used to bring, I believe, two together. We're looking for one that would only go on arrays. It might actually, concat also might be on arrays too. I forgot. I apologize if I'm incorrect there. But not concat though. Anybody else got a guess or no?
Oh, is it split or slice?
Split and slice will actually divide things. Right now we want to bring things together into one string.
Join?
Very good. Absolutely right, Hannah. It is join. It's how we bring an array together to make a string out of it. And even better, join takes in the parameter of how we want to join them together. What do we want separating them? What do I mean by that? Let me go ahead and say join here. And then this is what I want to join it with. What if I wanted to just join it with, I don't know, a few tildes there. Press save, come back over to astronauts, and I refresh. Take a look at what just happened. It joined it with those three tildes. Took the array and joined it, but it separated them again with whatever I placed in that parameter. So what do we actually want to separate our elements with? Again, it's not just a comma, it's a comma and a space, which is different. So to split these things properly, we say we want you to split them with a comma and a space. So that's what we place in that join. We come back over to here, we refresh, and we see that our skills are now formatted properly. How y'all feel about this one?
Awesome.
I'm glad you record because I'll be watching you again tomorrow.
No worries, no worries. So dot join is that function we were looking for to bring all those strings together. Or sorry, bring that array into a common string.
This is the one thing we couldn't do in the studio, Kyle. because we didn't know how to
Awesome.
manipulate the skill.
Yeah, no, awesome. This is the one thing that was hard for you guys. I completely get it. We don't use these helper functions all the time. If you're not always in there, they're easily forgotten. So yeah, .join is just one of those things that put in the back of your mind. It does help out by turning that array into a proper string. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions on this portion before we hop into the bonus missions? All right. We all ready for those bonus missions? Yeah, Kyle, we're so excited. Awesome. Let's go ahead and do it. 26.6.3 bonus missions. Number 1, display the astronauts sorted from most to least time in space. Fine. Let's do it. We got to sort some stuff. So again, we have a data flow. Why do I keep saying this word data flow? Because you are now introduced and bringing data into your application. You need to know where your data comes from and what you're trying to connect it up to. Where do these cables connect? So that being said, we know that this information comes in from our fetch. We transform it into HTML that now visually kind of shows the astronauts. Then we put it out to our HTML. So it actually shows to the user. So my question is, okay, we need to sort our astronauts in some capacity. Hours, time and space, whatever, even by name. The question is, where do we sort the dang people before we move on to the next step? The best time to manipulate your data, sort it, do whatever you need to do, is when you pull it in. As soon as you do that, before you even start switching things up and making a visual, hold off on that. Making things look pretty is usually down the line. Let's first get our data prepped and pretty before we try to do anything with it.
Kyle, can you, what, 1 second.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, is there any possible way to send that code? There's a bracket somewhere in my code that is screwing everything up, and I can't even follow along anymore because I'm like lost. Like because of that code is
You can
broken.
send me your code. I can't send you mine. So feel free to send me your code, and I can take a double look at where your semicolon or where your curly bracket might be.
All right, cool.
Off. All right. So we need to find out where exactly in our data flow we need to place this. So, again, it's whenever we pull in information. Now, when I say pull in information, I don't mean the fetch. I don't mean right here where we're transforming the object. I mean when we actually have something usable. When we finally have something usable and we pulled it in. Here is where we actually want to sort our stuff. Before we even transform it into a usable visual object. So let's go ahead and sort, of course. I actually have to think of what we want to do here for this sorting because it's an object. Oh, yeah, we can just do that. That's fine. All right. What we need to do is response, again, is an array. One of the helper functions on an array is what? What helps us sort?
Sort.
Very good. It is sort. Absolutely right. So what we can start with is response dot sort. Now remember, sort by default will just take a string or array of strings and make them alphabetical. Alphabetize. That's the word I was trying to go for right now, almost at 9 p.m. at night. Sort. But we are not sorting strings. Oh no, my friends, we are not sorting strings. We are sorting an array of objects, which is much more complex and a lot more fun. So let's go ahead and do that. We need to create an anonymous function for this sort function. So we start with this function. And we have two sides of the coin. We have A and B. A and B will both be something out of the array. Again, what is that something coming out of the array? It is the object, the astronaut. So A and B will be an astronaut object. Now, when it comes to sorting, Kyle does not know everything off the top of his head. He is not a genius. He uses pencil all the time because he makes mistakes. There are two ways we can tackle this. So either I'm going to be sorting the wrong way or the right way, the first way. So I apologize if I get it wrong the first time, but if I get it right the first time, I knew it the whole time. So we have A and B, which are, again, astronaut objects. What do we need to sort by again? Which property key?
Hours, astronaut, hours in space.
Very good. Absolutely right. Hours in space. So what I do is say A, again, which is my astronaut object, saying hours in space is less than B dot hours in space. Oh, I am mixing two
Yeah, I
types of
saw
versions
that.
right now. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. That is just just my subconscious coding for me right now. All right, there we go. This is how we actually should do that. So now it's all sorted. Remember, sort is going to return our astronauts. So we're going to say let sorted astronauts equals. There we go. I'm going to go and close this a little bit because we're not really using it too much. Sorted astronauts. So this is from my response. If we wanted to, can we just rewrite back to response? Yes, technically, but it's best practice not to write back to your parameters all the time. But you can do that too. So again, you can just take out let sorted astronauts and just have response. That's fine too. I just don't want to do it just because I get chills down my spine. So I'm going to come in here, and what I'm going to do is replace response for sorted astronauts. There we go. I think that's the only place that we use at response. There we go. So there we go. We sorted this. Press save. Let's hop back over here. Refresh. See, there you go. 50-50. I totally got that wrong. Let's go and look at this. 190, 455. Oh, you're not even doing it right. What are you doing to me? What are you doing?
It's upside down. No, it's not.
No, it's not upside down. It's actually in the same.
Is it sorting by first numeral?
No, because hours in space, I'll double check. Let me go in. We're going to print out the sorted astronauts here. We're going to actually debug what's going on. That's for strings. It will take it by the first letter there. But it might be. Actually, sorting always gets me every time.
No, it's not.
Let's go. Console log. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Let me see if I'm getting my functions mixed up.
Wait.
Am I going bananas right now? Oh my gosh, because I am returning true and false in a sort. Oh, for future Kyle watching this movie, you are just dumb sometimes. So what it is that sorts are asking for three possibilities back. It is a -1 to move in a certain direction, 1 to move in the opposite of that previous direction, and 0 to do nothing. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to do a comparison here. So I'm literally returning a Boolean when it's asking me to return a number. So it's not less than or greater than, it's a subtraction. I apologize. That is what the sort is asking for. Oh my gosh. And I'm still, because I'm not returning, because I'm thinking that I'm in an ES6 environment. There we go. Let's try this again. Refresh. Perfect. Now we got it. I wasn't returning this because my mindset was somewhere else. I apologize. But you do need to return from your functions. So you return A, hours in space, minus B, hours in space. We come back over here, and we realize finally we're actually sorting. Piece of cake, right?
Can you walk through that one more time? That's mind-boggling.
Absolutely. So what specifically, the sort portions, or why we did this return?
Why the A and the B? That's where I really got lost.
Absolutely. So A and B, remember, are our astronaut objects. They're sorts just pulling two out and going to compare them.
Okay.
So picture sort just having like a tray of objects. It's going to pull out two of them and look at them and compare them. And depending on how they are, they're either going to switch them or keep them right there in stat, or like in that array. That's how sorting will hypothetically work. So it takes two things, compares them, either puts them in two different places or keeps them the same. That's how sort works. Now the two things that we're comparing, again, are A and B, which are astronaut objects. A, hours in space, where again, A is an astronaut object, hours in space is one of those properties in it. We have to compare it to B. Now, that is what's going on here. Why are we subtracting? Because again, we need to return a negative number if we want them to move, a positive number if we want it to stay. We're telling sort either to switch the balls or keep them the same. We subtract it, again, to either, because either hours in space over here is going to be, say, 10, and this one over here is going to be 5. 10 minus 5 returns a positive number. If it's a positive number, it will change it. Again, I could have this 50-50, but just giving you just a hypothetical situation. Hours in space on here could be 3, and hours in space over here could be 6. 3 minus 6 is -3, a negative number. So in that case, it's either going to switch it or keep it the same. So that's what's going on, is that we need to return either a positive or a negative number from this sort algorithm, or from this area right here. So that's what's going on in this sort. Sort is fairly tricky. So if you're getting a headache over it, don't worry about it too much. It is, like I said, I'm always 50-50 at it. Don't worry about it too much. Just note that this is how we will sort objects, is that we actually need to take the properties out of it and compare those two. We compare it by subtracting the two. Fun fact, if I switch to B here and I put A there, then what's going to happen?
I go up highest first.
Absolutely right. We're going to put the highest first. Ellen has been out there way too long. 979 hours. Awesome. So there we go. I'm going to refresh this. It's back to normal.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would I be able to see the HTML code one more time? Because I kind of joined a little bit late.
HTML has not changed a bit. Whatever you pull down is the same.
Oh, interesting. Oh, wow.
Remember, we're doing everything to this HTML dynamically. Nothing should be inserted into this HTML by the end of the studio, at least from where we are at right now.
So the template literal goes inside of the script.js.
Absolutely right, because that template literal has got to be inserted somewhere, and that somewhere is into that container. So we do it dynamically down here.
Okay. And like I was also looking up online because I was like also struggling. So there's a way to loop through without like doing like the typical for loop.
So that's what we did. We did the for each statement here. We did the for loop previously in the video, but the for each was asked about, and so I entertained that, and now that's out there, and that's what we're using.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Any final questions before we move on to the next step? All right. Let's keep on going here. Number 2, make the active true text green for astronauts that are still active. Active is true. All right. So we want to make it green. Sounds good. Let's go ahead and do that. So there's a couple ways we could technically do it. Let's go ahead and we'll work with the template literal for this one. So
Kyle,
in here,
could you please close off the margin so we could see the whole code.
Oh, absolutely. See, there shouldn't be too much over there. Why are you moving back?
It doesn't want to move.
You can click on the file.
File close it up on the corner.
The 2 folders.
The 2 folders.
Close the
Up in the corner.
Oh, you want me to click that? Gotcha. Okay, sorry about that. Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. You know what? That's why, because I moved it all the way over to Max. Okay, cool. All right. So let's go ahead, and what we're going to do is work with the template literal to do that. So when the astronaut has the property of active set to true, we want to style the text. What did they want exactly?
Active true.
Okay.
Green.
Make the active true text screen. Okay. So we make that specific text screen. Going back over to our example here, we are going to set this to green here. Come on, there we go. So we're going to set that to green. So to set text to green, we need to style our text. To style our text, we can use CSS, but in this case, we're trying to do things a little bit more dynamically. So in that case, what we're going to do is actually work with this tempered literal to do it more dynamically. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be writing a string that will only be inserted in here if our active property is true. So to do any of that kind of code, to check stuff, we need to first put that $sign in there, and then there's curly brackets. And now I need to ask the question, is astronaut active? Now in here, technically we can place a ternary operator. Ternary operators, if we remember back to our conditionals. Conditionals is a way of doing that. So we can place if the astronaut is active. To do a ternary operator, we do a question mark, and then this is the case if it's true. So in here, I can put style equals, double quotes, color of green. Otherwise, just put no string, just put an empty string right there. So remember, this is a way of doing a conditional with that question mark. We covered it very, very briefly whatsoever. It hasn't really made too much of an appearance, but this is one way we could do that. So let's see if it actually works. Come back over here. We're going to refresh and take a look at that. Active is now green. Awesome. That's what we want to see. Now another way, well, that would be another ternary operator technically too. So this is one way we could have done it. There's also multiple different ways too. Just the one that came to mind right off the bat. Anybody have any questions on this? Any other way that you'd want to see this?
How would you do it in style?
Do it in style, so you're talking about the CSS?
Yes.
Technically, we'd still have a ternary operator there. I would just insert the, let's go ahead and go to it. So what we do is that we could say in here, just say green text to make it easy. Like that. Save that, come back over to script. So it'd still be a ternary operator, but instead I would say class, and in this case, I would say green text. Just like that. Or, well, not still ternary operator. I think we're not going to away from ternary operators there. But if we refresh, we still see that it's green text.
There is extra colon or some.
What was that?
There is extra colon on the code. So
Extra colon. You say an extra colon?
Yeah. This
Are you talking about this
text, green text, and after green text, there is extra.
So we actually need this colon here. This is part of the ternary operator.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, I understand.
Yeah, and real quick, just to go over it too, just because I know we haven't gone over this. Remember, the ternary operator is first your conditional, question mark, if it's true. So what to do? Colon, if it's false. That is your ternary operator there. What this usually does is that you check for a conditional and you return usually a string or some kind of small bit of data back to somewhere. That's what a ternary operator is really good for, especially in kind of like very small dynamic areas of your website like this. So that's awesome. Any other questions on this one? All right, let's keep on going. Final one, everyone. Add a count of astronauts to the page. Ooh. Oh, they didn't even give us a good one for the final one. All right, fine. We need to add a count to the page. My question to you all is, should we do this completely dynamically or do we cheat and add it to the HTML?
Completely dynamically, please.
All right, let's make sure we can actually do that before I give false promises. All right. Technically, we can. Yeah, we can put it in the container. Why not? That's fine with me. All right, so what we can do is that we can include in the container. We need some element to edit here. So picking out one that we can actually edit, I was like, should we edit the H1? We could, but it would just get messy doing the inner HTML. I'm looking at this container as probably where we just want to include everything. So let's go back over to script.js. And what we want to do is include a count. I'm going to include the count at the very top. So it's going to say astronauts, then astronaut count or something like that, and then how many astronauts there actually are. So in order to do that, we need to include an element like that. We want it to be at the top. And remember, everything goes sequentially. The first thing we need to do is insert that count. So let's go ahead and create that string. Let my count, HTML or whatever, quote those ticks because we're going to be creating a template literal. And this one I'm going to say div, I don't know. You can even do like an H3 or something like that if we just want to do something small. H3 and then $sign. And then what we can say is sorted astronauts.length. H3, just like that. I always say, like, launch code, love to death, but has the one word, very popular, that I cannot spell, and that is astronaut. Every time, no matter how many times I spell it. I can get it right now. There are times. Oops. I refreshed that, and nothing showed up because, why? What am I missing here?
Console.log?
Console.log only shows to where?
Oh, to the console.
The console, very good. We need to actually see this on the visual portion of our HTML. Coming back over here, my count was created. Where am I missing here? Where do I need to put this before we are done?
In the container.
The actual container, but what's actually going into the container?
Oh, all my HTML.
All my HTML. So we need to append my count to all my HTML. So we say all my HTML plus equals my count. So let's append it to all my HTML before it builds the rest of the astronauts there. So refresh this and see astronaut count. This was astronaut, yeah, the astronaut count of 7. So there we go, we added it to the page. There we go. Now, if you're asking yourself, is there a way to optimize this code? There absolutely is. I just broke it out again just for simplicity reasons, but what we could do is we could take this and we can put it into all my HTML first. So we can take out that whole line of code right there, take out that line of code, and then let it go directly into there. Of course, too, we didn't even need to append everything to all my HTML and then set it. If we wanted to even further simplify stuff, we can put it right there. Like that. But if we simplify that, then all my HTML up here is no longer being used. So what we could actually do even more is say my container plus equal, or sorry, my container.inner HTML plus equal all my HTML, just like that, or excuse me, all my HTML technically. If we want to simplify even further, we take this, paste it there, remove that extra variable that we no longer need, save that, come back over, refresh. We see that everything is not correct because I don't have that in ticks. Let's make this literal. Press save, come back over, and we refresh. We see that everything is still intact, even though it's been simplified.
Look at the top, though.
What's up?
Oh, when it first appeared, it had a code in it, not a number.
Oh, that was previously. If you saw a lag there, it's because I did not include ticks here. I included double quotes. So what we saw, yeah, was something different.
It's late and I'm a little slow. Sorry.
No. It's all good. And there's a lag. I know there is a lag there, and I do go fast. So no, all good. Cool. I'll hop back over to the code here, and while we're looking at it, any questions? Polis, I'm looking at your code if you're still here, and have you been able to find that issue? I have hopped off. Anything on here at all? Nothing?
I have.
How's it feel at the very end of this?
No, Kyle. I have. Remember the one we did with the astronaut? It is not working for me. Can you please show me where we set the astronaut?
Which astronaut? What are we doing exactly?
Okay, in the skills.
The skills.
No, I'm sorry, not in the skills. In the active. Remember the list item we changed? Yeah.
To make it green? Yep, right here. So we set this to green text in our style.css.
Mhm.
We set .green text here to color green.
Okay.
Awesome. Anything else on that?
It is not showing up, not the CSS part, the one, the beginning after the dollar sign. For you, it is like astronaut showed up in blue color. For me, it's just showing it as a plain text like astronaut. So I was
Remember
wondering.
that when we, yeah, absolutely. So when we do that with the dollar signs and the curly brackets, remember you need to use a tick on your string. So we use a tick to define that it's a temperate literal. So make sure that we're using those ticks. You're going to find it right below your tilde, top left of your keyboard.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Any other questions before we hop off here? Because that is all I got. I believe we come back over here to our studio. We are done. Ooh, next is TypeScript. All right. That's going to be fun.
Thank you, Kyle.
Absolutely, everyone. All right, I'm going to stop sharing here. We are good to